Hello, House of the Dragon Season 2 is over, so I wanted to record a brief video just giving my overall thoughts on the season as, well, this one has been quite decisive, I'll say that. I've already seen quite a few spicy takes. I'm not going to be spoiling any of the events from here on out for, like, Season 3 and stuff, even though I have read the books. So we will talk about some of the events that they've changed for the adaptation, and generally all the differences that are there. So first things first. I guess we can start with the finale. The finale felt very anticlimactic, and I suspect that eventually we're going to find out about a bunch of things going on behind the scenes. If you don't know, the season was originally supposed to be 10 episodes, and from what I understand, they had to film during the writer's strike, right? So usually where they would make changes on the fly to adapt things and change things, they couldn't do that, and they were basically filming a shorter season as is, and that's why I think we have... I mean, the finale is literally armies marching, and it's kind of like, it's very anticlimactic, right? Like, this whole season was building up towards this big war, which we'll also talk about, and then it's kind of nothing, right? Even though Season 1 was also sort of that, you know? Like, Season 1 ended with the Rhaenyra turning around with her menacing face, and it was like, yeah, it's time for war. And then we get to Season 2, and the war is sort of there, but it never feels, like, omnipresent, like with the War of the Five Kings in Thrones, for example, right? It's kind of like... it's there, and we sometimes see it, but it doesn't really feel like the Dance of the Dragons, you know? So the finale is kind of odd. I'm hoping that we open Season 3 with something to, like, really hammer home the fact that things are really, really bad, you know? And I guess speaking of that, let's jump all the way back to the premiere. So I made a premiere video on the main channel, actually, and a lot of what I said there has unfortunately aged very poorly, because my primary criticism for Season 1 was that it was way too fast. And then we opened Season 2, and we jumped over a lot of the, like, immediate fallout after Luke's death, right? In the books, there's the great line about Aemond only having one eye, right? Or rather, losing one eye, and then asking him, how could you be so blind? We never saw that. Like, Season 2 opens with everyone already sort of moving on. Obviously, we see the whole Rhaenyra stuff with mourning the loss of Luke, but... we don't really linger on that moment of the world learning of it, you know? It's only like we see the mourning of that, and not really the immediate aftermath. So that was kind of sad. But then, when we get to, like, the rest of the season, we really begin to meander about things that I don't think we really should have meandered about, right? And that goes back to the whole Season 1 ended with Luke's death, which is like kinslaying, right? In the World of Thrones, kinslaying, massive crime. Really, really bad. So... you should expect that, you know, everything's just gonna blow up. And it kind of does, right? The Son for a Son, the premiere was really, really good. The whole blood and cheese thing, that was great. But right after that, I think the overarching theme for Rhaenyra, and that's going to be like my primary criticism for this season, is that I don't think they really know what to do with her. Because, like, on one hand, she is saying, I want to get on the dragon, I want to go to war. But at the same time, she's like, my council doesn't allow me to do that. And then there's also that, like, we can't start a war because so many people are gonna die. And then she recaps, like, the show again. It's like, they have so many dragons. We lost a dragon. That's, like, after Rook's Rest, right? We'll get to that. I think they didn't really know what to do with her, generally. Because I don't know how true this is, but it feels like she repeated the same thing about the dragons, about, like, wanting to go to war, but, like, she can't. She must have repeated it at least like 3-4 times, right? Like I said, I don't know if this is, like, actually true, but that's what it feels like. I don't really know if that's just me. I've been talking to a few of my friends, and this is something I keep hearing a lot as well. Which, by the way, side note, thank you, HBO, for keeping the series weekly. Even though, you know, there were definitely ups and downs, I love watching it weekly. That was so good. Aside from the Rhaenyra stuff, I think they did a bunch of really, really good things with, like, showcasing the war outside of, like, the major characters, right? Like the Burning Mill, like the jump cut there. That was really powerful. But that is also something that is, again, like a bit of a double-edged sword, right? Because we know that there is a war going on in the background throughout the entire season, but we touch base with it so rarely that, again, it doesn't feel like this omnipresent threat that has engulfed the entire realm. I wish they had done a slightly better job of really conveying the fact that this whole thing is, like, tearing the realm apart, you know? Because we keep hearing about this whole kinslaying thing, which again is like a huge deal, right? The House of the Dragon, that's what the whole show is about. It's about a family basically tearing each other apart, and that's why it should be this great tragedy, right? But we really only get, like, the roundtable conferences, and not really, like, the boots on the ground perspective, which is unfortunate. But that's like a I think we'll see a lot more of that with season 3, basically. Rook's Rest, though, favorite episode probably episode 4. That was great. They obviously did a few things with in the book, like, a bunch of that is very, very ambiguous, right? Like Damon, or not Damon, Aemond. By the way, if I say wrong names, don't worry about it. Aemond actually choosing to burn Aegon, right? That's like a huge deal, where it's like a conscious decision. So that's like a change from the books. But that was great. I loved that. Everything there was perfect. I loved it. I know a bunch of people say that, like, Rhaenys choosing to, like, turn around, but I never really thought that was, like, something that is, over dramatized or something. Like, my headcanon is that, like, she just knew she wouldn't be able to run, right? Like the same thing we saw with Luke. I forgot the big dragon's name. Like, the biggest dragon, the one that Aemond has. Yeah, I completely forgot his name. But, like, he could just chase her down, right? Because his wingspan is, like, massive. I don't really think that was like a over dramatized thing where she turns around and he's like, I'm gonna charge to my death now. Because a bunch of people have said, like, she should have kited him all the way to, like, Dragonstone, and then they should have ambushed him. I don't think that would have worked. Maybe just me. I don't think that would have worked. So the first half of the season, generally speaking, I think was really, really strong. No really big complaints there. Each episode had me, like, itching to see more. I was very excited. Unfortunately, though, then we get to Harrenhal. Now, this is something that has unfortunately been tainted by the Game of Thrones TV show, right? For those of you who've read the books, you will know that A Song of Ice and Fire, Thrones books, they have a lot of magic. Like, a lot of really weird magic, a lot of dreams, a lot of weird, like, living through creatures, right? Like, there's a popular theory that Larys is like a like, he can see through rats, basically. Like, all the rats in the castle are actually Larys, which would be very cool. It would be very thematically fitting and everything, right? That's beside the point. Basically, Game of Thrones took that, like, mysticism and magic of Thrones and made it so painfully obvious that it kind of lost its allure, right? It either completely removed the magic, or it made it something that doesn't feel magical and is just like a thing. You know, that's like my biggest thing with most fantasy universes, and why I even have the slogan on the main channel of magic is magic and magic is cool. You don't need to explain everything. Sometimes the thing that makes magic magical is the fact that you don't have an answer. Unfortunately, the Thrones series didn't really embrace that. We'll get to this with House of the Dragon as well. And with Harrenhal, I've really, really enjoyed the weirdness of Harrenhal, right? Because that's what we know from the books. That whole place is twisted, it's haunted, it's wrong. Like, everything about Harrenhal is just weird and creepy. And we got to Harrenhal, and I was like, yes, I want to see more. This is great. But the more it went on, the more I was like, okay, we get it. Like, we get it. Enough. Because, I don't think any of the scenes were bad. I just think there were, like, a few too many of them, right? Like, halfway through with Damon, it was like, clearly the message they were trying to get across is that he has a lot of regrets when it comes, like, when it comes to his brother, when it comes to Rhaenyra, when it comes to the way he's just led his life, his violent tendencies, all of those kinds of things. Like, he has a lot of regrets, and all of Harrenhal is basically a way to convey, like, his state of mind onto us as the viewers, right? Great. But I don't think we needed 3 episodes of that. Now, admittedly, the payoff to that was really good. I really enjoyed the payoff to that. I really enjoyed, like, where it all leads, right? To him, again, I forget the dude's name, but to him eventually bending the knee, and then what we see in the finale. That was really, really cool, right? And him seeing the vision. We'll get to the vision. But the Harrenhal stuff, I think, was just a bit too long, generally. And, like, him tripping on the weird potion. That happened, like, 3 times. And for that, I am certain. For that, I don't even need to say I feel like it happened 3 times. I think it did happen 3 or 4 times. That was just a bit too much. Just a little bit too much. Episode 6. Episode 6, unfortunately, got very, very twisted in the online sphere, right? Because in the end, Rhaenyra kissed the other lady, who I forgot about. That is like a change from the books, but I don't really have any problems with it. I think it fit perfectly fine with both of their characters. That's like the whole, being shackled by gender and, like, those preconceived notions of what you're supposed to be, yada yada. That's like this whole show, like what you're supposed to be. We also see this with Jacaerys on the royalty side, right? Like the fact that he doesn't have white hair. So these perspectives on what you're supposed to be, what like sort of box you're supposed to fit in, that's like the whole show. So it was unfortunate that people like review bombed that, but that's something I don't really take seriously anyway. My problem with episode 6 was that it was very meandering. Oh, and also I didn't even mention the fact that a bunch of House of the Dragon, completely forgot about this because I was going to talk about the church building. People are just slipping in and out of locations where they shouldn't be getting to. Like, people are getting smuggled into places where they just shouldn't be able to be snuck in. Like, Rhaenyra went to meet Alicent, like, halfway through, right? I don't remember which episode was that. But that made no sense. Like, that just made no sense. And I get that they wanted to, like, actually portray them, talking one-to-one. And, of course, we also saw this in the finale. But it feels like it's breaking, like, that underlying principle of the world, right? That was like the biggest problem with some of the later seasons of Thrones, where like the underlying fabric, the underlying rules of the world began to disappear. Like Littlefinger was teleporting around, right? That was just not good. So that's unfortunate. And episode 6, I think, was the epitome of that. It was like meandery, and a lot of it was kind of just like kind of just boring. It was kind of like more of the same, you know? And that's what I mean. I think they couldn't expand it to the whole 10 episodes, which is why I think we got like these odd pacing issues, right? It's not that there was not good material there. It was like some of it was stretched too thin, which normally I think would have been cut, and other things would have been stretched more that were like extremely condensed. And I think episode 1 was way too condensed, and I think the rest of the show was kind of way too stretched out, basically. Episode 7, I think, was great. The Red Sowing was excellent. That's like another thing that changed from the books, where in the books it felt like it was much, much longer. In the show, it was just a bloodbath, and I loved it. And this is again something that is, we never really saw in Thrones, because like Dany was just flying 3 dragons, and no one was even batting an eye. It was just like, oh, of course she has 3 dragons, why not? Why not have 3 dragons? But generally, like the whole, dragons being like these weird gods that people can't control, they don't understand them. I think this is like one of those times where they really managed to capture that sense. Because in this world, the dragons are like, it's not even a nuke. It's like, because I know George has likened them to like nuclear weapons and nuclear deterrence, right? But it's like far worse than that, because like we saw with Aemond, they can't control them. Like, they have their own desires, their own wills. And sometimes that can blow up in spectacular fashion, like we saw with Luke, right? The thing that kind of started this entire thing. So, the Red Sowing was great. I loved it. That was a fun time. And I guess finally, episode 8. So the big thing is Damon's vision. I think the vision was cool, but I don't think we should have seen so much of it, and I think they should have kept it like a lot more ambiguous. Seeing Dany again, that was cool. Seeing like the White Walkers, the winter is coming, all that was cool, but I think they made it like way too explicit. Like, I think seeing a close-up of the Night King's face, or whoever that was supposed to be, it was like a White Walker, right? That was honestly unironically cringe. I don't think we should have seen a close-up of them. That felt extremely fan-servicey, especially because, like, again, that whole thing was extremely tainted by Season 8. And that wasn't fan service that I think a lot of people enjoyed, because the only thing that I kept thinking of was, well, The Long Night, right? And that was like, oh, that was like the all-imposing threat that now is gonna be like, you know. I do like the undertones of them never being sure, like, because I think the underlying implication to all of that is that he thinks they're gonna have to fight them. And not like in like however many, I think it's 300 years or something in between. I think he thinks that they're about to pop off with the White Walkers, which obviously they're not, right? That's like the underlying thing of dreams in this whole thing, where people misinterpret them, people don't really understand them, people think they're the main characters, and that's like turned up to 11 with all the Targaryens, right? Because that's kind of like their whole god thing. So that's interesting. But I just don't think they should have made it that explicit. I think the payoff to his arc was really good, like really, really good. But I don't think it should have been that explicit. And maybe if there hadn't been like that many scenes of him like tripping and wandering like through memories, we would have seen like this one scene be this super explicit, where he's actually pulling all of those weird strings together. Maybe it would have worked better for me. But I think because we had already seen so many of them, I think it was just like a bit too much, a bit too on the nose, I guess. That's, I guess, the big problem with this season for me. A bunch of it was like a bit too stretched out, a bit too much, a bit too explicit, and other things were kind of like, I wish people just talked, you know? The biggest strong points here is definitely I think the Aegon stuff has been done really good, because like Aegon is a horrible man. He is a terrible dude, a horrible dude, and the number of people who actually like genuinely feel bad for him, I think is indicative of how they've made him likable, right? Like he is evil, he is pure evil, like he has done the worst kinds of things, but he is likable in a way, right? And seeing him burned and just like wallowing in misery, that was actually kind of, I think that was very well done. Rook's Rest was done very well. The dragons in general have been done incredibly well. The sheep stealer thing, we'll see what they do with that. I'm not going to talk about it because they're doing something different. And George has already talked about it. He doesn't like it because well, you know. But the sheep stealer stuff, I'm not sold on just yet. We'll see what happens there. And I guess the last thing is I think if season 3 doesn't get more episodes, we might have this thing again, because I think a lot of these problems are to do with the episode counts, and a lot of it is, of course, the writer's strike, right? But I think if they had more episodes, it wouldn't feel as bad, generally speaking. Maybe I'm wrong about that, because maybe they would have stretched out even more things, but maybe if they stretched out some things that, you know, like some of the battles and stuff, maybe those would have hit a bit more, which again, considering they want to portray like this whole war thing, right? But yeah, so overall, I enjoyed the season. I really enjoyed watching it week to week, but episode 8 definitely was a bit like underwhelming, right? Episode 8 felt like season 1. Maybe it's like an Attack on Titan situation where season 2 is also like fully set up, but at the same time it feels a bit comical considering that was like season 1 was that, right? Like we sped through season 1 with all the time skips just to get to the war, and now we've arrived at the war and we have another season of people like debating whether or not we should go to war, even though we are at war. And like we've literally seen a full episode of war, and we're still debating of whether or not to go to war. And I think like that flip-floppy thing is what made it feel kind of underwhelming, right? There are things with like I said, the whole sneaking in and out of places that I think they also need to think about a bit more. I get wanting to have those scenes, but you know, it's the thing I keep going back to with all these shows. You need to balance telling a narrative with not forgetting like the rules of the world, right? Now, this is something that Game of Thrones fell prey to. This is something the Walking Dead TV show fell prey to. A lot of shows, unfortunately, forget the fact that they're still supposed to be grounded in a fantasy universe, sure, but it's still supposed to be like a, you know, like an existing consistent world, where with some of these things it just doesn't feel like that, you know. Like, there should be powers that make sure that people just can't sneak in and out of places. And travel times are also weird, but, you know, that's like that you can forgive. So, episode 8 was a weird one, but generally, I'm still positive about the show. I'm looking forward to season 3. Hopefully, they you know, iron out some of the issues, and hopefully we don't get another, like, therapy arc with one of the characters. Because, like I said, it was a good arc, but it was just a bit too long. So those are my very, very chaotic thoughts. Let me know what you thought about the show, if you're even watching it. I don't know. We're gonna talk about season 3 in probably like 3 years. I really hope we could get back to more like more seasons in general, like every single year or something. But you know, with how the dragons look like in this season, and just like how many of them there are, I can see why it takes 2 years. Whatever the case, let me know what you thought, and I'll be back whenever I'm back. I don't even know. This was an unplanned video. I just wanted to sit down and real quick talk about it. So let me know what you think. I guess if I had to give a, you know, is it worth your coffee rating of the series I never made, The Queen That Never Was, it's a reference. I think I'd probably give the season as a whole like a 7 out of 10 probably. I think it was decent. You know, it's all right. There were definitely a few highlights, but the rest of the scene was kind of like, it's set up. And it really shouldn't have been set up because season 1 was set up. But yes, I'll leave it there before I start rambling again, and I'll see you back whenever I see you back. Have a good one. Bye-bye.